Okay, we are live at the Bali Conference in Grand Rapids. Again, I would like to take a minute to let everybody know that this is not our typical setup. We typically do our interviews via Skype. Obviously, this is not Skype. We are live. Very excited. We've got Vince Siciliano today, and he is the president CEO of New Resource Bank out in San Francisco. Vince is one of the speakers at the Bali Conference, and he is talking about he's got a couple different sessions. He's got how banks make loans, and he's also got a session where he's talking about triple bottom line and how you can actually use that to engage your employees. Right. So thanks for coming on to the show.
Thank you, Rob, for having me.
You're welcome. So why don't we talk real quick a little bit about New Resource Bank and how you guys are different than a traditional bank and kind of your vision and mission and what you guys do.
Great. Well, we are quite a different bank. We consider ourselves to be a mission-oriented bank, and that mission is to support businesses and organizations that are organized not only for a financial but also a social and environmental return. So our promise to all of our investors and depositors is that your money will be invested in building a more sustainable community.
So it's really focusing on building the community so that it's long-term than just take your money and leave, which there's a really interesting question that we're going to touch on later, which we talked about before. So why don't we talk a little bit about the triple bottom line? And obviously with a lot of the companies that are in West Michigan with Cascade Engineering and some of the others really focusing on the triple bottom line, why don't you, if you can, just quickly touch on triple bottom line and what your topic's going to be?
Sure. What we end up doing, and the way we make loans really gets at the heart of that, because there's no company that is perfectly qualified. We're not perfectly qualified. So the question is, if you look at your business and you think about it from the social, environmental, and financial perspective, we ask a series of questions. If you go to our webpage, newresourcebank.com, you'll see that there's a questionnaire there that says, how sustainable are you? And what we encourage all our borrowers to do is to go through answer about 45 questions about employee practices, community involvement, financials, water, waste, energy, those kinds of things. And the idea is that sustainability is a journey. We're all on this journey, and there's the dimension of commitment and competence. And you can be a learner, an achiever, a leader, a champion. We don't really care where you are on the journey, but we want you to be on that journey. And so for us, it's an assessment process to see that you're somewhere along the road and that we can help you in that process going forward.
One of the biggest challenges that I've seen, especially when people talk about business sustainability, usually when you say that, depending on who you're talking to, people immediately think that you're just talking about being green.
Yeah, well, there are what I call a number of doorways into sustainability. So for some folks, it's a values-oriented thing. We worry about our legacy. We worry about the future generations. What are we doing for them? We worry about our planet's carrying capacity. For other people, it's purely economic. And so they're saying, well, how can I save money? For some, it's branding. For some, it's attracting and retaining employees. So there are a number of doorways into it, and I'm not being judgmental about what gets you in the door. I think we're seeing now in most bigger businesses, they're saying that 70% of them now have sustainability on the agenda. That's the good news. The bad news, it's number 8 on the agenda. But it's at least on the agenda, largely for economic reasons, maybe not for value reasons, but either work.
What I've seen is, especially on a lot of companies, when you look at locally Cascade Engineering and you look at other companies like Herman Miller and Steelcase and some of the others that really have it, the sustainability moniker term is kind of new, and triple bottom line is obviously been around for a while, but it can be a real core part of the business. And I know that for a lot of the companies in West Michigan, it truly is. So, listening to how you're looking at businesses and deciding who you're going to loan money to, I think that's kind of interesting, because I think it's a lot more interesting than banks just going, what does your profitability look like, and what's it going to look like tomorrow, and do you get money, yes or no?
Well, I think actually an argument can be made now that companies that are incorporating these factors from the top, in other words, triple bottom line is a nice phrase and I use it, but it's really an integrated top line. Are these kinds of concerns driving your revenue production, driving your management practices? And the data is beginning to say that companies that have that orientation, that sustainability leadership, that more conscious capitalism are outperforming the more traditional company.
They are, and they get a lot more buy-in from their employees.
Employees, branding, community, and financial results. People always feel like there might be a trade-off, but if you have that kind of buy-in, and if you have resiliency, which comes from managing yourself from a longer-term perspective, you should outperform.
And that's one of the main things that I think that a lot of leaders, especially new leaders, as they're coming in, everybody tries to focus on, are we making money now? Are we profitable now? And obviously we have the debacles that we've had financially over the past few years that are really directly tied to just earnings. Or how are we doing? Are we making money now? And obviously making money is important. If you continue to lose money, then you're going to be out of business. But having a longer term perspective is a really core piece of the sustainability puzzle. Why don't we talk about fast money versus slow money and that whole concept? If you could explain that maybe.
Sure. We use it in the context of fast banking and slow banking. And the idea being that fast banking or any fast business, fast money, it's really about how quickly can I grow, how high is my profit margin, how quickly can I sell out, and what kind of internal rate of return do I end up with. It's strictly about the speed of which the money can be turned over and leveraged. Slow banking says we're into this for the long run. We have no exit strategy. A lot of community banks, it turns out, are really built for sale, not built to last. It's really a business of building up a bank which is then sold. And so we're into this for the long run, no exit strategy. We argue that everybody is going to need some kind of liquidity and dividends as we go forward, and we'll have to provide for that. But this is about building a franchise of a certain kind of community. It's about being experimental and developmental with new kinds of products. It's about having multiple returns in what we do, and that's what we would call slow banking.
Right. And a big piece of that too is just, and a lot of companies look at that. I mean, obviously people might say, well, fast money versus slow money, fast banking versus slow banking. Obviously one of the things that's important is cash flow. And cash flow versus the concept of fast money and slow money are two completely different things.
Yes, I mean, in the end, when we make loans, the number one criteria is character. Who are these people and what do they stand for? But the second thing is cash flow. It's cash flow which is going to keep your business alive. It's cash flow which repays loans. And so there isn't a softness around financial performance. You still have to have financial performance. However, we look much more deeply into the businesses and the industries, especially for younger companies, and where others see high risk, we're able to understand the stages they're going through.
Wow, I wish New Resource was here.
We'd love to be around the country, but right now we're just in San Francisco.
So one of the questions that you always like to ask, especially with what's kind of core to New Resource, which I thought was a very interesting question, which is, do you know where your money spends the night? Right.
Do you know where your money spends the night? Yeah. Unless it's in your mattress at home, which I doubt, it's in the bank. And actually, if you were to look in the bank vault, it's not there. So it's out being lent to somebody. And it could well be blowing up mountaintops in West Virginia, or it could be supporting local farmers markets. And so see your money as a vote for the kind of community and the kind of economy and the values you have.
I think that's a great way to look at it. So one last thing that I want to touch on, which I think is important overall, but especially for BizWest Michigan, is you are the chairman of the Ken Blanchard Center for Faith Walk Leadership. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, and actually the DBA we use is Lead Like Jesus. The idea is that Jesus is the greatest role model for leadership we have, and so in a non-denominational sense, we present that as a model. And we have a very simple model. Think about the heart, that is the motivations and character, the head, that is the thinking, the hands, that is those are the practices, and the habits, the way you recalibrate yourself of a leader. And we have a lot to teach about that, about the role of the leader, and it's a very effective way to be used in any business in terms of leadership.
Very interesting. Well, we'll definitely have a link underneath the interview for that to be able to get there, but it's leadlikejesus.com and leadlikejesus.org, I believe.
Yes.
Correct? So, Vince, I really appreciate you taking time to come in and chat with us. Hopefully it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Rob. I enjoyed it. I appreciate it very much.
And, pay attention to the rest of the interviews. And again, we are live at the Bali Conference in Grand Rapids. Thanks.